What's up YouTube? Agent Zero here, and today I'm going to be doing a comparison video between Tigerspite and Hazard of the Cast. These are two legendary auto rifles in the 450 round per minute class that were released with the DLC Forsaken for Destiny 2. Before we get into everything, I need to mention that there are random rolls on both of these guns, so there are a plethora of different possibilities that you can get on these two guns when it comes to your roll. What I did, despite the fact that there are random rolls, I did a lot of research on these two guns. I researched the base stats, I researched what perks you can and cannot get on both of these guns, I ran polls, I looked on Reddit, I did a bunch of research to try and give as much information as possible regarding these two guns. And in the end, I'm going to give my opinion on which one I prefer and which one you may want to go for. So without further ado, let's get into talking about these two guns. I hope that you get something out of this video, whether it's to be entertained, whether you're here for information purposes, whether you are here to try and figure out which one you should go for first. Regardless of the reason you're here, I hope you do get something out of it. So let's talk about these two guns. The first question is, where do you get both of these guns? The Tigerspite you can get from a drop in the Dreaming City. Now, if you don't know where the Dreaming City is, you need to unlock or finish the story of Forsaken before you can unlock the Dreaming City. So after you beat the Forsaken storyline, then you can unlock the Dreaming City, and it will be right above the Tangled Shore on your world map when you're trying to fast travel somewhere. The Hazard of the Cast is a Gambit weapon drop. So if you play in Gambit, you have an opportunity to unlock Hazard of the Cast. Those are where you can get both of these two guns. Now let's get into the stats of these two guns. Keep in mind that the rolls can greatly affect the stats of these two guns, but I'm going to tell you the base stats that I found. It was very hard for me to find base stats of these guns, so I hope I'm bringing you the correct information. I looked at two places for the stats of these guns. First, I looked on a website called light.gg. It has a lot of good information about guns in Destiny 2. However, when I looked on that site, it kind of confused me, threw me off a little bit, and I was very skeptical of the stats they put on there. The reason being is on that site they had that Hazard of the Cast had 3 or 4 stats that were greater than Tigerspite, and Tigerspite had 0 stats that were greater than Hazard of the Cast. And the reason why I say that makes me a little skeptical is because I don't really think that Bungie would do that. I believe that they would make one of these guns at least, or Tigerspite, with at least one perk that's greater than Hazard of the Cast. And so what I did was I went on Bungie.net, I went into my character profile, and in my profile I can actually see all of the guns that I have previously collected. Now, if you go into your character profile, you can actually click on a gun if you're curious as to the actual stats of that gun, and when you do, the stats come up. Now, it comes up in a bar graph form, so what I did was I overlaid the 2 bar graph forms. I overlaid Tigerspite over Hazard of the Cast, and it finally made more sense. The Tigerspite has greater range, while Hazard of the Cast has greater stability, handling, and reload speed. So, you may want to choose your gun based off of those base stats. But don't choose your gun just yet, because the perks can play a huge role in that. So let's get into the perks. When you look at your gun, there are 4 perk categories across the top. On your auto rifles, you have your first category, which is your barrels, which I forgot to mention. The sights you see in these clips are the sights you get on each of these two guns. So that may also sway your decision if you like the Tigerspite sight better or you like the Hazard of the Cast better. Personally, I like the Hazard of the Cast a little bit more, but that's really just a preference thing. It doesn't make too much of a difference. Choose whichever one that you prefer if it makes that much of a difference to you. So back to the perks. That first category is the barrels on the two guns. The second category is your magazine and ammunition, and the last two categories are your bread and butter categories. Let's talk about the first two categories and then bring those stats back that I just mentioned. In those first two categories combined, there are 9 perks that can increase the range on these two guns, while there are 8 perks that can increase the stability. Now, personally, I find that those are two very important perks to have. The stability and the the stability and the range of these two guns are very important to have. If you want greater handling, there are other things that you can do. Actually, increasing mobility increases your gun handling. So that's just something to note. That's a side note, but those are two perks that I find that are very important to have, or two stats that I find very important to have, especially on auto rifles. Now, with that being said, again, there are 9 perks that can increase range, and there are 8 that can increase stability. So remember, the Tigerspite has better range, Hazard of the Cast has better stability. So that may sway your decision. You have a better opportunity to increase the range on your gun than you do the stability. So that may sway your decision. You may say, you know what, I really do like the range, but since I have a better opportunity of increasing range, I may want to go with Hazard of the Cast. Now that we've talked about those first two perks, let's get into the bread and butter perks. I know people love those bread and butter perks. There are some amazing perks that you could get on both of these guns. And honestly, a lot of those perks are the same. But there are 3 perks that differ on these two guns. The 3 perks on Hazard of the Cast that you cannot get on Tigerspite, and these are pretty big perks in my opinion, are Rampage, Zen Moment, and Ambitious Assassin. Now, Ambitious Assassin, it's an okay perk, not one of my favorite, but Zen Moment and Rampage are pretty big perks that you are unable to get on Tigerspite. Now, I need to mention, I'm getting these stats off of light.gg, so I apologize if these are incorrect. Like I said, I tried to do a lot of research, but some of this could be wrong. I hope it isn't. So those are the 3 perks, according to light.gg, that Hazard of the Cast has in its random roll drop chance that Tigerspite does not. The 3 perks on Tigerspite that you are unable to get on Hazard of the Cast are Dynamic Sway Reduction, Under Pressure, and Pulse Monitor. Now, some of those perks you may say, well, I really don't care about them. Personally, I think Dynamic Sway Reduction is underrated, and I think Under Pressure can definitely be okay. I don't like Pulse Monitor that much. It's definitely harder to use, and there are better perks out there in my opinion. So, in the battle of the bread and butter perks, I honestly feel that Hazard of the Cast has the edge. Both of these guns, you could definitely really get a great roll on them. You can get Outlaw on them, you can get Kill Clip on them, you can get High Impact Reserves, all very good perks. But when you're comparing those 3 perks that Tigerspite has that Hazard of the Cast doesn't, and vice versa, I personally feel that Rampage and Zen Moment are better perks that you can get in your random roll than Dynamic Sway Reduction and Under Pressure. The other 2, I don't really worry as much. Not 2 of my favorites, Ambitious Assassin on Hazard of the Cast and Pulse Monitor on Tigerspite. So again, I think Hazard of the Cast has another edge when it comes to comparing those bread and butter perks. So right now, from my calculations, Hazard of the Cast has a lot adding up for it, and the Tigerspite is kind of falling behind a little bit. But don't count the Tigerspite out yet. Now that I have talked about those perks, I've talked about the stats, let's get into some of the subjective part of this, where I took polls, I looked on Reddit, and there are also gun usage statistics on the Destiny tracker. First, let's talk about the poll that I ran on Bungie.net. I asked people, I said, hey, which gun, despite the fact of random rolls, if you got them or even if you haven't, which gun, Tigerspite versus Hazard of the Cast, do you prefer? And an overwhelming number, 71% of poll respondents, and this is out of 21 votes, gave it to the Tigerspite. So the Tigerspite takes the poll on Bungie.net. However, when I looked on Reddit, there was a Reddit user that asked, hey, do you guys prefer Hazard of the Cast or do you prefer Tigerspite? That Reddit response received 5 responses, and all 5 were Hazard of the Cast. So keep that in mind. Now, there is a Bungie tracker, and that Bungie tracker, or the gun tracker, is actually called Destiny Tracker, and you can find the usage of different weapons in Destiny 2. If you go on that, you will find that as of today that I'm making this video, the Tigerspite is the 5th most used gun in the Crucible, while the Hazard of the Cast is a little bit lower on that list. It's actually number 18. So both of these two are in the top 20, but Tigerspite is used a little bit more than Hazard of the Cast. So we've talked about poll numbers and we've also talked about usage numbers. I'm going to talk about my personal experience with these two guns. Both of these guns are great guns. You can do well with either of these guns. It will probably depend on the role you get on both of these guns. My personal experience, I've done well with both of them. I've actually done slightly better with Hazard of the Cast. So with that being said, me personally, I do prefer Hazard of the Cast, but that doesn't mean you should go for it. And why am I saying that? If you don't have either of these two guns and you're coming to this video and you're wondering, which gun should I go for? If you've unlocked the Dreaming City, it's actually much easier to get Tigerspite than it is Hazard of the Cast. So that could play a huge decision in your mind if you just want a good 450 auto. But overall, my opinion, I prefer Hazard of the Cast a little bit more. But both of these are very good guns, and you can't go wrong with either one of them. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative and entertaining. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel for more Destiny 2 content. Well, leave a comment in the comment section and let me know which one of these guns you prefer and why. Until next time, peace!